Sure. My name is Andrew, last name Gillum, Gillum, and I am 31.
And what are you doing that makes you unique? What is your story? If you want to tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are and what you're doing as an inspiring young person.
Sure. Well, inspiring young person are your words, but I am serving as a city commissioner, which is a municipal elected official down in Tallahassee, Florida. My distinction here in Tallahassee is that I'm actually the youngest person ever elected in the history of our city to the city commission, and I think that I was fortunate to get that honor. When I ran following my graduation from undergraduate school at Florida A&M University, where I served as student body president, I spent my first year out of college working really around the state of Florida, registering young people to vote. And really not just young people, but people who have been traditionally marginalized in the system, so poor people, African Americans, Latinos. And what really surprised me most as a young and idealistic, progressive, was how much I encountered in these communities, people who had no real faith and belief in the process, who felt in many ways abandoned by the people that that they had voted for in the past, had bothered to vote for, being promised change and policies that would help to improve their lives and the lives of their family, and not getting any of that made them very, very negative about the process. And so I spent a lot of time trying to inspire them about the possibilities and what can happen when you do get good and effective representation, and also what it meant to hold that representation accountable. And after I spent that year on the road, I kind of got to thinking, why is it that I have not taken greater leadership and accountability for the issues that I was seeing in my own community? And although I wasn't born in Tallahassee, Florida, I did, move here for college and decided that this is a community I loved and wanted to stay and raise a family. And so I started to try and put into practice what I had talked about on the road for that 1 year, and decided that I myself would seek local office. It came as a bit of a surprise to the establishment here, because all the city commission seats are citywide, which means you don't represent districts. And so even though there are parts of the city that have, huge populations of young people, not only did you have to compel, that constituency, but you had to compel a majority of voters who, quite frankly, at that time were not majority young voters, that you were someone who would be elected and represent their interests and champion their causes and listen to them and their issues as well. And so I set out on a mission to do that, and ended up making it through a 6-way primary, of which I was probably the second least funded during that primary cycle, because quite frankly, not many people thought I had a chance at running and winning a seat that was almost 70% white, not majority young, and certainly not majority transplant. And fortunately enough, I think we talked about a message that people could wrap their heads around, that they could wrap their hearts around. They saw, elderly people, when I knocked on their door, saw their possible grandson, in me. People who my parents' age saw their possible son and what their child could possibly one day do. And so people projected on me, I think, their highest aspirations for my generation, and thought I was a worthy enough person to put into office and test what it is that I could do. And I think almost 8 years later, I consistently hear from voters that voting for me was one of the best, political decisions that they felt they've ever made, and they thank me for living up to that promise. Although I don't think I have completely filled that promise, or else I wouldn't still be in elective office. I'm striving towards, having and making a dent on those issues that still inspire me, those issues that still confront my community, and I'm hoping that I can have an impact for the better before I decide to leave office.
Great. You talked about your experience registering voters, something that inspired you. Was there a particular moment that you were like, I'm going to run for office? Or was it more of just that whole experience was kind of a gradual awakening for you?
Yeah, a good question. And no, I can't say that there was a specific moment that, it just sort of clicked. It was more, it kind of for me occurred over the Christmas holiday. I was home with my family. I had time to step back and breathe, reflect on the experience that I had. And from my holiday break, picked up the phone and called one of my closest friends and sort of someone I go to as a political ally and said, I think I want to run for local office. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, I think I want to do it. And she said, I don't know if the qualifying is still open. I think it may have closed. And when I returned back to Tallahassee from my holiday break, it would have just so happened that it was the day before the last day of qualifying. So it was fortuitous that I had that conversation and kind of came to that place over the holiday break, because had I waited any longer, the deadline for running for office at that time would have passed me by. So I think it was quite divine that it all came together the way that it did, but not an epiphany moment, no.
Cool. What are some of the challenges that you see facing young people today in our country?
Well, I mean, the challenges are tremendous and great, but what I think is inspiring as we look at young people, this particular generation that's often described as millennials, is that there is still great optimism amongst this generation, even though when surveyed, their parents say that they believe that the future for their kids is not going to be as bright as the future that they inherited from their parents. We, as young people, still feel pretty optimistic and quite confident about our ability to solve big problems. And as long as that confidence can then translate into, young people running for and pursuing office and for the right reasons and doing the right things when they get there, not being jaded, not being overcome and amalgamate to the system that they're all, that we quite frankly would be running to help change. That we have the ability to impact, the future of the national debt, the future of America's, role in the world, our independence, our financial stability, our, future outlook on health. These are all things that young people repeatedly are confident about their own futures, but right now it appears very, very bleak. And so that confidence, for me, the challenge is converting that confidence to actual, action from the standpoint of policy reforms, of young people showing up in elective offices at the national level and at the statewide level, and gaining the power to begin to implement the kind of change that I think we believe is possible, but quite frankly are not right now in the position to make happen from a policy perspective.
And following up on that, what advice do you have for a young person, youth, who wants to get more involved in their community or in the political process? What would you tell them?
Well, I'd say just do it. I mean, and I'm stealing a phrase from a popular, shoe company, but it's absolutely right. If you wait for the moment where you've got your house in order, if you buy into the hype that you got to have all types of advanced degrees and be married with children and settled before you can ever get out and serve, it's a myth. You'll always be chasing that dream because, very few people ever look up and say, oh, wow, I'm finally stable and in a place where I feel like I can serve. The reality is that the situation that we're facing in our cities and in our states and in the nation and in the world is that the situation at this point makes it absolutely necessary for all hands to be on deck, for time out for any spectator who thinks that somebody else is going to solve the problem and they'll be the benefactor. That somebody is, in fact, you. And so the belief that we have to wait until we're ready or invited into the process, I doubt that day ever comes. You're ready now. You're ready to obviously do something that can impact the lives of others. And as you grow and as you mature and develop and become more professional at doing those things. But the idea that you need to wait is a total misnomer, and I've never subscribed to it, and I don't encourage other young people to subscribe to that idea.